President Trump revealed some details about his domestic agenda Monday, including parts of his proposed budget for the coming year and a sneak peek of his plans to repeal and replace Obamacare. The president addressed the issues during a gathering of the National Governors Association at the White House.
We have come up with a solution that's really, I think, very good. Now, I have to tell you, it's an unbelievably complex subject. Nobody knew that health care could be so complicated. And statutorily and for budget purposes, as you know, we have to do health care before we do the tax cut.
Chief White House correspondent Major Garrett is at the White House. And Major, do we know where exactly the White House is in its effort to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act?
Well, politically, it's trying to regain some lost momentum. This issue has stalled for the early part of the Trump administration, and it's worth reporting, of course, that it's only a month in. But I can tell you on Capitol Hill, there was a sense of lost momentum right when the president took office and was inaugurated. The White House senses that. The rallies for the president have tried to continue their momentum, but these town halls that congressional Republicans on the Senate and House side have encountered have given them a little bit of reason to pause on this idea of repealing and then replacing the Affordable Care Act. Now, the House has put together a plan. It hasn't passed the House, and it is by no means clear that Senate Republicans will adopt that plan. And the president isn't necessarily clear that he wants exactly what's in the House plan. In general, what it would try to do is by the year 2020, create a transition to a new health insurance marketplace, one that does not have an individual mandate, one that would have far more tax credits than government subsidies, and far fewer regulations, a lot more freedom for states to experiment on the use of Medicaid allocations from the federal government, and also allow insurance companies to compete across state lines to create policies for consumers in those various states. Those are the broad outlines, but they haven't been written down anywhere, and most importantly, Elaine, they have not been subjected to any congressional votes. And until that happens, all of this is aspirational and not legislation.
Well, when House Speaker Paul Ryan and Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell met with President Trump in the Oval Office, they reportedly tried to urge the president to embrace the House GOP plan in his joint congressional address Tuesday night. Do we know yet, or it doesn't sound like it based on what you just said, whether the president intends to do that?
Yeah, the House Republicans certainly want that endorsement from the president because they want the president's popularity such as it is. And there's a mixed bag there. It's not all negative for President Trump. To put that presidential seal of approval, if you will, on this emerging House Republican plan, because without that, House Republican leaders fear no plan will even get to the Senate. And Senate Republicans are willing to say, yes, go ahead, Mr. President, if you want to endorse that House Republican plan, because that way at least this keeps this issue alive, gives us a chance to debate something in the coming months. But the president also, and those closest to him, Jared Kushner, his son-in-law, Steve Bannon, Stephen Miller, the domestic policy advisor, also know this is very risky politics for the White House. And endorsing anything before you've seen any floor votes puts all the president's weight and prestige behind that one particular legislative vehicle, which creates very little maneuvering room for the president. And as this White House likes to remind us over and over and over again, President Trump prefers to have maximum maneuvering room when he's negotiating, even when he's negotiating with allies, which congressional Republicans at this stage on this issue still are.
Well, Major, we also got new details of the president's proposed budget. What can you tell us about that?
Well, the big issue here is $54 billion in increased defense spending in this next fiscal year, which is a sizable increase. It would break existing budget law, which caps defense spending and domestic spending at agreed upon legal levels. This would put it way above that on the defense side, and then cut the exact same amount, Elaine, $54 billion from domestic non-defense and non-veteran spending. Some of the largest proposed spending cuts since the early years of President Reagan's administration. And it is unclear, very much unclear politically, if even a Republican-controlled Congress would go for defense increases of this side and domestic spending cuts of this magnitude. But it's what the president's going to propose, and it would require not just Republicans to go along, Elaine, but some Democrats would have to agree to as well, because as I indicated at the top of this discussion about the budget, you have to change the law. And to change the law, you need 60 votes in the Senate. And that means some Democrats are going to have to buy into this. The White House said today it believes that will happen. but a lot has to occur politically for that to be true.
Finally, Major, I understand you have some new information on another Trump administration nominee hitting a roadblock. What can you tell us?
Deputy Commerce Secretary nominee Todd Ricketts, who is part of the Ricketts family. You may remember from the World Series, the Ricketts family owns the Chicago Cubs. It also owns Ameritrade, as well as a lot of other financial holdings. Todd Ricketts is a member of that family. Pete Ricketts is the governor of Nebraska. His brother's the owner of the Cubs. And I'm told that Todd Ricketts, the nominee for deputy, not Commerce Secretary, but deputy Commerce Secretary, is running into a tremendous number of issues, separating himself from the family's financial interests. And these issues are so pronounced, so frustrating, and confrontations with the Office of Government Ethics so pronounced. This week, Mr. Ricketts may withdraw his nomination as Deputy Commerce Secretary nominee. That would come on the heels of Navy Secretary Philip Bilden withdrawing his nomination as Navy Secretary last night, something I first reported was likely to happen on February 18th.
All right, our Major Garrett at the White House for us. Major, thanks so much.
Sure.